The Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI, has identified a significant increase in the number of cases of sextortion, which commonly involves children and adolescents being coerced and threatened into sending sexually explicit images online. The FBI warns that the specific target of victims are boys ages 14 to 17. Advances in technology have changed the dynamics of criminal offense against children. Familiar offenses against children, such as sexual abuse and exploitation, now have technological counterparts, as those under 18 have become increasingly driven by technology and social media. Children and adolescents are statistically far more likely targets for sextortion victimization. The resulting trauma is rarely reported, and help is not often sought due to shame and fear. Sextortion often results in negative outcomes for victims, including depression, anxiety, as well as suicidal ideation. Though research on long-term impacts upon children and adolescent victims are sparse, there is general consensus for a heightened risk of relationship instability, negative long-term health, homelessness, and suicide. As a pastor to students, I was greatly alarmed to receive a series of 3 calls within 4 days' time, alerting me to 3 different students of mine who are the victims of sextortion, and I came to realize that our students were under attack from an enemy of which I was previously unfamiliar. Sextortion has become a particular problem among adolescents because of their widespread use of smartphones and digital and social media, and the United States Department of Justice has labeled it the fastest growing and most significant cyber threat to children and adolescents, having more underage victims per offender than all other offenses involving sexual exploitation of children. The FBI reports a 10-fold increase in sextortion reports between 2021 and 2022 among teenage boys and young men, so the problem is clearly mushrooming in severity. As the holiday season approaches, the FBI warns that sextortion cases typically increase as children and adolescents have more idle time. Cyber sextortion utilizes the anonymous nature of the internet to inflict harm on victims, and again, children are particularly vulnerable. A fundamental aspect of sextortion is that shared images are used against victims to threaten them and force them into compliance, and it is the control and power that the victim senses that the offender holds over them in terms of harm that is paramount to this crime. Education is imperative for both children and adults, and steps of prevention must be taken to reverse this trend and protect those who might not be able to protect themselves. An added challenge for adolescents as they navigate decision-making and risk management lies within brain development. Adolescence is by definition a time of rapid growth and change in which individuals are no longer children and not yet adults and are internally struggling with a developing mind and body. The prefrontal cortex is a crucial element for memory-guided decision-making, and its development and maturation happen primarily during adolescence, with a full formation at about 25 years of age. This means that adolescents are making life-altering decisions online without the necessary cognitive tools to navigate these decisions. The response to sextortion attempts varies by victim, with some choosing to ignore solicitation attempts, while others pay a significant financial cost, and still others pay a far greater price. The overall financial impact upon victims of sextortion is undetermined, but the median payment of victims is at least $100, with studies indicating that 93% of payments lead to further demands beyond the initial payment. In extreme cases, children and adolescents have been kidnapped by adults posing as children they have met online, while others have been enticed into suicide. A majority of adolescent victims identified the experience of sextortion as a central life event that changed the direction of their life forever. Sextortion victims often experience shame, humiliation, fear, and self-blame, which may manifest as anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, and self-harm. Sextortion cases have grown 800% since 2019, and 1 out of 4 victims was 13 years old or younger. A significant variable is in low reporting numbers, as it is estimated that 50% of victims never report to anyone, with few reporting to law enforcement. As there is a variety of platforms that are utilized by sextortion perpetrators, there are significant challenges for enforcement and safeguarding. Perhaps the greatest variable involved is that sextortion cases continue to grow faster than policies, research, and awareness of the phenomenon, which calls for an increased attention to informing the public of how to avoid victimization. The church has traditionally shied away from sexual topics, particularly those that affect children. Yet our biblical mandate in Proverbs 22:6 is to train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Though Scripture does not describe the teenage years of Jesus, there is an assertion in Luke 2:52 that Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. Those who are perpetrating sextortion against children are targeting church-involved students who are active in school because they have the most to lose. If the church is truly to seek to meet the needs of students, hard conversations must be had. Christians must embrace technology and the ways it can work to promote the gospel, yet there must also be vigilance to sound alarms of satanic evil that may be manifested through technological devices. The church must guide parents to be proactive in a battle against the enemy and engage with children about online activity and set up safeguards to protect rather than be reactive to traumatic exposure. Victimization can lead to isolation and fear, and the church must be prepared to share life together and offer hope in the midst of situations that often lead to feelings of hopelessness among victims. Sextortion affects people from all parts of society, but it remains an understudied form of corruption. Though there is increased attention given by the media, there have been few studies to measure the nature, prevalence, and ultimate impact of sextortion. As sextortion is a rapidly growing phenomenon, little is known about the impact of victimization on children as they grow into adulthood and how they ultimately respond to such threats. Though previously a crime targeting women, adolescent males have increasingly become victims of sextortion, particularly since the global pandemic of 2020, and there's little statistical data on this growing victim population. It is also noteworthy that adolescents generally lack confidence in the ability of adults, specifically parents, educators, authority figures, and law enforcement, to offer meaningful assistance or support. Studies on personality traits, sexual awareness, and emotion factors have proven to be successful predictors of victimization, yet they have been generally neglected in literature, despite their strong association with sextortion-related behaviors. Our children are our future, and they are at risk from an enemy using new tactics to do irreparable harm. We must be vigilant to protect those who are most at risk. Now is the time to make a difference. Now is the time to bring the darkness of sextortion into the light.